Started here with this work session. Welcome, everyone. We are kind of transitioning from the last work session. Apologies, we ran over a few minutes and we're a few minutes late here getting started. So I now call to order this work session of the Anchorage Assembly regarding AR 2022-212, Special Land Use Permit for Brown Jug at Huffman Park Drive. It is Friday, August 19, 2022. We are noticed from 1 to 2 p.m. We are getting started a little bit late. It's 1:05, so we may end up going a little over if need be. We'll start with Assembly member introductions around the table. I want to note for the record that Ms. Allard is excused. So let's go ahead around the table, starting with Mr. Cross.
Kevin Cross.
Pete Peterson.
Daniel Voland.
Felix Rivera.
Meg Zalto.
Forrest Dunbar.
Christopher Constant.
Suzanne LaFrance. And then on the phone, we have Ms. Quinn Davidson.
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And Mr. Solt. Do we still have Mr. Solt on the line? Okay, he may be joining later. And then also around the table, we have
Francis McLaughlin from the Planning Department.
Mandy Honest, Municipal Clerk's Office, Licensing Official.
Jane Sawyer from the, from the Alcohol and Marijuana Control Office, Program Coordinator.
And I'm the director of the AMCO.
Dean Gates, Assembly Council.
Thank you all for joining us here today for this work session. We also have representatives of the applicant and also members of, and we'll have you introduce yourselves a little bit later, and then members of community councils representing Old Seward Ocean View, I believe. We have someone here, and Rabbit Creek Community Council as well. And just by way of format today, and I just want to remind members too that work sessions are designed to provide an opportunity to get information, to ask further questions and have discussion, and we're not debating the merits of the resolution right now. But today we'll have an opportunity to ask any questions about the action before members for this coming meeting on Tuesday, August 23. And the special land use permit is before the Assembly for approval, and Ms. Honest, Mr. McLaughlin, and Mr. Gates can answer any questions that members may have. Then we'll go into some clarification on the concentration factor that was raised at the last meeting, which I believe Ms. Wilson and Ms. Sawyer will be able to speak to, and Ms. Honest as well. Then I will invite the applicant to come forward and talk about their project, and then the representatives of the community councils. All will have 5 minutes each, and then we'll just have questions and discussion. And so, Mr. Constant, is your hand up?
Just briefly, before you move on, we have 2 documents before us as well. Can you tell me what they are?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Constant. So, so that is the format for today, and I want to note that the documents are posted online. If you go to muni.org/work sessions and scroll down to this work session, you will find resolution AR 2022-212 in its entirety with all the planning documents, including the community council resolutions. And then we have a document that has been brought, I believe, by Ms. Wilson, who'll be speaking to it when we get to the part about the concentration factor. And we will work to get this item posted on the work session webpage as well. So the community council documents aren't here in the room, but if you go online to the full resolution, which is posted under today's work session. It has the entire packet of information that includes all the community feedback and plannings documents as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Constant. So with that, we will turn to the action before us. And actually, Mr. McLaughlin, would you say a few words about the document regarding the special land use permit? We do have a few new members. I know this document isn't new to you, but it's helpful. I have found to go over and provide an opportunity for questions. So if you go ahead, Mr. McLaughlin.
Sure. About a month ago, the Assembly held a public hearing on this alcohol special land use permit case, and I believe that they closed the public hearing and postponed it for about a month. And we have work session, and then I think it's back up on Tuesday night's Assembly meeting. So this is an application for an alcohol special land use permit for a package store license. The applicant is seeking a 4,574 square foot liquor store within a new commercial building. The zoning is the I-1 district. This location is on Huffman Park Drive, and other licenses within the vicinity, alcohol licenses within the vicinity. There's the Anchorage Wine House, the Speedway Express liquor store, the Oak and Keg, and on Old Seward. Further north is the Value Liquor Store. There are 3 restaurants in the vicinity: the Sushi Garden, O'Brady's, and Southside Bistro. The subject property is identified as a town center in the Anchorage 2040 land use plan. And the packet is very large, rather large. And on page 127, I believe, starts the numerous public comments opposed to the granting of this application or approval of this application for alcohol special land use permit. And within those public comments is the Old Seward Ocean View Community Council, which passed a resolution opposed to this. Thank you. I guess I'm able to answer any questions you might have, particularly about zoning, but I just wanted to note that Sean Odell, my coworker, is the planner assigned to the case, but he had to pick his kids up from school. So I'm filling in for him, but I feel comfortable answering questions. But I just wanted to note that I was pulled in because of the planner's absence. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. And I do want to note this will be item 11C on our August 23rd agenda on Tuesday. The public hearing was closed July 12th. And there isn't a motion pending. I have Mr. Peterson in the queue. Before I go to Mr. Peterson, I just wanted to check with Ms. Honest, our municipal business license official, if you wanted to add anything regarding the action before the Assembly.
I don't have anything to add for this. As you know, this is the special land use permit. You already have dealt with the licensing side of it. It was conditionally protested pending resolution of the land use permit. That's the only thing that is currently pending on the conditional protest. So that's the status of the license.
Thank you, Ms. Honest. Mr. Peterson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I was just wondering, it says that this is going to be in a newly constructed commercial building. Is that building already been completed, or is this going yet to be built if they get the license? Thank you.
Through the chair, Mr. Peterson, it's still under construction, so fire and building safety have held off. They usually do conditional approvals, but they have to go back in and do their actual inspections once buildings have been completed.
And
Good,
Mr.
thanks.
Peterson, I would just add that I think that this business would share. There would be another business in the building, Starbucks. Is that right? Yeah, there'd be a Starbucks. So thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Any other questions at this point? Okay, we'll go ahead then and move on to the concentration factor question that was raised at the July meeting. And I will turn to Ms. Wilson at AMCO.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was at that meeting, and I want to make sure I'm understanding the question specifically. I will go through the summary, but I recall a gentleman came forward and said the city should be limited by the number of licenses per community council. Was that what the actual question was before I start blabbing on for you all?
My understanding was, yes, there was a question concerning a limitation tied to a community council boundary area.
So the answer to that, and I believe I came up and spoke very briefly when I heard that, to say that the Alaska state statute Title IV does not restrict the number of licenses in a specific community council. It does have local population rules that apply in general to municipalities, governments, et cetera. We didn't fully come with our statistics, but we believe all package store licenses, there's no additional package store license in the municipality of Anchorage. The license at issue here is an already existent license that has been being transferred from no premises to premises. Is that accurate, Mr. Thorne? Got it.
Yeah.
So, but based upon a question from Assemblyperson Sulte, excuse me, and I don't know if he's joined the call yet. He called our office and specifically requested a breakdown of the number of licenses in community councils throughout our city. This is a very informal document. I would have provided something, without annotations. But in short, what it shows you is on the front and the back, the community councils that have licenses. For example, I live in Bear Valley. Bear Valley has no license, so it's not going to be on the list. But if it has a license, how many alcohol licenses are within that council? It doesn't distinguish between package store, REPL, beverage dispensary license.
It actually might, because that's
The list-
looked up. It doesn't say on here.
I think it's all the licenses, because if I look at downtown community council having 90 licenses, I'm pretty
Okay,
sure it's
that
not
would make
like
sense.
90
Okay.
package stores. I think the comment here is from our records supervisor, who says downtown is one of the smallest community councils, but obviously has the greatest saturation, in part because it's in a downtown business area of a town. She's referenced a couple community councils space-wise, not population-wise, of similar size. For example, Abbott Loop has 20 community councils, Bay Shore has 16, and I think for Ocean View, and Old Seward, it is currently at 11. AMCO is not here at all for any other purpose than to encourage the local process, because that's what's most important to the board. This license transfer was before the board in our NOM meeting, and the board specifically tabled it to give the city or the municipality time to determine whether the conditional protest would go beyond a conditional protest. And it will be taking up your decision in the September meeting in Fairbanks, assuming that you have that resolved at this time. I will stop speaking and see if anyone has questions for me.
And before I go to Mr. Constant, I do want to note for the record that we have been joined by Mr. Sult. Mr. Constant?
Thank you. If you were to add together just those councils that are very geographically connected to the downtown, which would be South Addition and Fairview and Government Hill, you get up to 111 licenses in a very tight geographic area. But that's not my question. That's just exactly a power of 10 beyond what's contemplated in the council that we're discussing. My question is, do we know, and this, I don't know if it's to Joan, to AMCO, to planning, or to clerk staff, how many notices of violations or complaints for actual operations of licensees in the Old Seward Ocean View Community Council do we have? Do we have a record of complaints, of problems that exist related to package store operation or any licensee operation?
I looked up the crime reports along Huffman Road, and there's not a lot of crime.
Right. So from a criminology perspective, but we don't know of any violations that have been noticed for these operations, right? We're not hearing loud complaints from people who live or work in those areas.
I haven't received any notices of violation from AMCO nor land use enforcement or APD regarding this location. They usually send report to planning department as part of their staff report. And so that should be included, but we haven't received any.
So this location, it might be a little too narrow. Maybe before we get to this on Tuesday, we could look at the community council in this area and have like a kind of a list of generalized complaints that we've received for the area, because I tend to base my actions on the question of the special land use permit impacts on actual impacts, not perceived possible impacts. So it would be great to have information that tells us what the actual problems are.
And Mr. Vice Chair, we can check our records as well and get back to Ms. Honest. I've been in the job a total of 4 whole months and have not seen an NOV for this region.
Yeah, and I think that information will be very helpful for me making a conclusive decision for my one vote.
Thank you, Mr. Constant. And Ms. Honest, is that something that you can take as an action item?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Would you be able to take that as an action item? Getting that information?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Next in the queue is Mr. Solt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So kind of building on that, a piece of data that we've been trying to find is sort of a heat map for dispatches for APD. So similar to how we did for Centennial Park, we were able to see dispatches or interactions prior to the camp opening and then after the camp opening. And I'm wondering if there's some way to get similar data that may show, as other liquor licenses come on, what an additional liquor license would mean for the area if it's a 10% increase in calls or related calls to alcohol abuse or alcohol related call outs. Does that data exist easily that we can take a look at?
The planning department doesn't track that. I don't believe that information is available. You're asking a logical question, but I don't think that that's something that's been measured. If something like that existed, it would be like Sharon Shamard at UAA or something,
Yeah, I think the data
Ms.
that we saw from Centennial
Through the
came
chair.
from APD.
May I
And,
respond to that?
one moment, we'll hear from Ms. Honest and then Mr. Cross and then Mr. Constant. Go ahead, Ms. Honest.
Through the chair, the police are able to compile reports for the clerk's office. We can look into when the last either package store license went in or last alcohol license in general went in, and they can compile a report of the crime activity pre that and post that, if that's what you would like to see. And just let us know if you'd prefer it being a package store specific license or if it was just a general license question.
And Mr. Solt, do you want to respond to Ms. Honest's question?
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair, to the chair. So I would prefer to have, yes, a package store if that exists. If not, we'll take a general license, and pre and post would be excellent.
Thank you, Mr. Solt. Thank you, Ms. Honest. I'll go to Mr. McLaughlin and then Mr. Cross. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So the last package store license to be approved there is Winehouse at Huffman, 15 years ago. And there probably have been no increase in calls for service or, criminality as a result of that package store. So some of the information that we're sort of discussing, it'd be flawed, right? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. McLaughlin. Mr. Cross and then Mr. Constant.
Yeah, just for the public, for the people aware, actually, the APD produces on the community crime map through LexisNexis, which is a very comprehensive crime data. You can separate from misdemeanors to alcohol-related crimes to violent crimes to domestic abuse. It's pretty exhaustive. You can go in there and target specific areas and draw maps around it, and you can identify different areas and then pick dates, and they update that daily. So that information is very comprehensive. So if you're looking for very specific area regarding a kind of crime in an area given a date, it's actually very readily available on the community crime map website. It's pretty easy to obtain if the community or anybody's interested in that information. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. Mr. Constant?
Yeah, thanks. So what I would hope if APD is going to generate a heat map is that they also provide a general heat map for ongoing crimes citywide so people can see that area relative to the rest of town, just in the current condition. I think that might be dispositive and not having so many flaws is the idea of looking before and after a 15-year ago change.
Thank you, Mr. Constant. Do members have any other questions? At the next
I'm
part,
sorry to interrupt. This is Ocean View Community Council. We're not getting the opportunity to answer these questions where we know the answers to some of them. But I want to point out that this liquor store will be adjacent to.
Point of order.
Ma'am, could you hold on for a moment, please?
Yeah, how do we get comment then?
We're going to go to the community councils after we hear from the applicant. And I'm sorry, is this Nancy?
Yes, Nancy Joseph, but I'm
Okay.
talking about a location that's going to be next to a marijuana retail.
We'll address those issues and we'll have an opportunity to hear from the community councils. We'll go ahead I'll just ask the members if there are any other questions for AMCO or any other areas of information. I don't see anyone else in the queue. I think, yeah, if you want to, thank you so much, both of you, for being here and for the information, which we will work to get posted online as well. So at this point, I will ask the applicant to come up and provide some information about the project and to answer any questions from assembly members. And then we will hear from the community council representatives. And if you want to come on up to a microphone, and then we'll just have you start by stating your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Anna Fisk. I'm the Vice President of Liquor Stores USA North, DBA Brown Jug.
Matt Thorpe, the President of Liquor Stores USA, Brown Jug.
Welcome. And if you would go ahead and just talk a little bit about your proposed store.
So I got a couple butterflies in my basket. So the proposed location is a fairly small, convenient style store. So not a flagship, not a destination, kind of a stop on your way home. Smaller footprint than some of our other locations. It will be a leased premises, and the other lessee is a Starbucks. I think they have a drive-through and a small footprint inside. Original plans for the Brown Jug showed quite a larger footprint than what we ended up with, which was, I think, just above 4,000 square feet total, with I think about 2,400 of that actually being retail space, so fairly small. I think that's all I kind of have to say. I mean, unless there are specific questions.
Thank you. Did you want to add anything?
There was a lot of questions about traffic and crime and things. So our company, that was actually location was picked by the previous owner, Alcana, and they targeted that area, thought it was a good area. They had good data on that. And we wanted to improve other locations and stuff and prior to doing this. So we got there and we looked at everything because it's really our goal to serve the public. And I've been here 52 years. This is my town. And if I thought putting a liquor store there would damage the quality of life for anybody that lived in there, you know, I'd be the first one to raise my hand and say, let's pick another spot. So I want to make, you know, that kind of clear. And every location that we've worked in, we've actually improved. We're actually working with Mountain View It's not always cash. We have a pretty good wallet and we've donated quite a bit. We donated about 2.3 million last year for the community. But we also allow our employees to go into Mountain View. There's a reader program at the library and stuff. So I think all of us get a different view of what a liquor store is. We're actually the community, as Anna said, we're right on the corner, right on your way home. It's a convenient store. It's not a destination superstore. And once we're in the community, we do things for the community. We just don't sell liquor and that's it. We're involved in all aspects of the community. And we listen to the community council. And I know they're, super concerned. And I'm hoping this meeting could ease some of those concerns. I know the wine house is concerned a little bit, and I hope this meeting will ease their concern too and address anything there as well. But, we feel that we're doing some things correctly. Some of the information that come out, the data does not support that. And once again, if we thought that this was bad for the community, we'd be the first one to raise our hand and say, let's move this to a different location. So thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Thorpe. And I've got two members in the queue. First is Mr. Cross and then Mr. Dunbar.
I just wonder if you can speak a little bit as to your site selection before you pick something. Part of the issues, you have concerns from community councils, and why you picked this spot. So can you speak a little bit as to the determining process that you have rather than just traffic flow or what's that? Or speak a little bit, give some details that might be of interest.
Sure. So Afognak has actually only owned Brown Jug for about 2 years. We purchased in the middle of COVID, June of 2020. So just about 2 years. Prior to that, Alcana were the owners, and I can't speak on their behalf, for all of their reasons. They did recommend this as a great spot. So we found, somewhere that would be new construction, very clean, very high end, a really lovely, clean aesthetic feel to it. And as a South Anchorage resident, I really felt like, as did Matt, that the South Anchorage community has just continued to grow a ton, and it feels underserved. So I know that some of the congestion, items were of a concern. It's super valid. I mean, we're here to talk about that today. I also think that there's plenty of population, different offerings, brand loyalty, product offerings, et cetera, where I actually kind of think everyone can win. I think that there's plenty of business and plenty of people, and we really felt like this was a good fit for us.
And to follow up with that, I understand site selection. Can you give an example of a site that you rejected based on a negative community influence?
Since we've owned it, Mr. Cross, every site that we've looked at, we've got great support. I think the last site was in Mr. Dunbar's deal. There was an old building that the landlord wouldn't remodel, would make it look beautiful. It's not our brand, but we want to carry. We told them that we would even pay for it, and they're just unwilling to work. So we bought a building about 2 blocks down, and we really put a nice store for that community up and put all the safeguards there with patron scan and other things to improve that.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. Mr. Dunbar?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Matt, you've already partially answered the question I was going to ask, but I'll just comment on Mr. Cross. A few years ago, and Chris knows this very well, Brown Jug did close a store actually in the Mountain View area based on largely community council concerns, but they had two stores and they closed one of the two. And that was frankly one of the really tremendous acts of good faith that I've ever seen from a corporation in this city. But I think that was before your ownership. So it was the prior owners. I did, you asked about, or you mentioned you'd met with the community council I think you said that, or you've communicated with them. And I want to hear a little bit more about what assurances, not just assurances, but are there any policies? We have done cases in the past led by our Midtown members often of these sort of memorandums of understanding, those kind of things. And usually it's just codifying things that the business owner was going to do anyway. But in some cases, it's agreeing not to sell little shooters and that kind of stuff. Have you done that? Are you open to doing that with this community council? You know, what assurances can you give them? And you're right, it is sort of a contrast from you just put a very large store into my East Anchorage, my district. And for whatever reason, there really wasn't any complaints. And I haven't heard any complaints in that area. It seemed to have gone smoothly. I think it was largely because there was a problem location and you moved it out of that problem location into, I think, what is now considered a better location. But again, my question is, you know, to what degree are you willing to do an MOU or offer other kinds of protections or assurances to the community council? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, you know, I think I speak on behalf of Matt. We're more than happy to have those conversations. We operate under a number of other MOUs already. And certainly, you know, for all the reasons, you know, we're a large chain and every single one of our store, we try and meet our clientele where they are. You know, for that sort of area, you know, whether it's restricting hours of operation, types of products or sizes, you know, et cetera, sold, or ensuring that things are sold at a certain price. Those are all things that we probably would have already incorporated, but absolutely, you know, if there are concerns and the community council would like to ensure that those are, you know, codified in an MOU, I think we're quite open to having that conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Dunbar. So I have 3 members in the queue. I have Mr. Sult, Mr. Constant, and Ms. Zolotel. Mr. Sult?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And to follow on what Mr. Dunbar said, to me, it's important that we have community council support, and I appreciate you working with them to try to get there. One of the concerns that was raised is the effect of this new package store on existing stores, some of which are not corporations, are sort of your smaller ma and pa or sole proprietor businesses. Do you have any data on what the impact of your store will be? You made the comment earlier that you've seen the market grow in some cases, which would be a negligible impact, or do you scavenge from other retailers? Just kind of curious your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Sure. We have some brand loyalty clients that really love shopping at Brown Jug, but we don't have a store there. So they have to go to different stores to buy their favorite products. The Wayne House, and I won't speak for the owner, but from our view, they really do a great job with wine and specialties. But we'll have beer and craft beer and those products there as well. But to answer your question, we did not do a technical data impact of that. We did do a traffic impact and felt that our store hours that we would be there would not create any undue stress on the roads, the neighborhood or such.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, if I one more question.
Sure, go ahead.
So speaking of traffic impact, and I don't know if anyone is there that could answer this. The studies, we've had a lot of changes in that area. So we're going to have a Starbucks, we're going to have a marijuana retailer, we're going to have a package store. We just had a Sonic go in. Are these studies independent, or do they take the development as a whole into consideration?
Yeah, they oh, I'm sorry, Francis.
This is to the planning department. Mr. Salt, the municipal traffic engineering department submitted comments for this case. They had no objection. The municipal traffic engineer has the ability to require a traffic impact analysis with any development. They are tracking the amount of average daily vehicle trips that will occur here and look at it comprehensively. they've not required a change be made to the development of this commercial property. I hope that answers your question. It's looked at comprehensively by the traffic engineer.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salt. Next is Mr. Constant.
Thanks. Two things. One, Mr. Salt, you used the term scavenged business from other retailers, and it's a very interesting term and not one that we'll debate today. But when we talk about it on Tuesday, because I'm sure that will come up, I would offer that I think it's a very bad practice of government to get into the business of deciding how competition should work. And so to me, we should be very careful when walking down that road to contemplate whose business is it. So that I would like us to be very cautious of. The market can resolve those questions. But I want to speak briefly to what Mr. Dunbar brought up about Mountain View and the fact that the Brown Jug did, in fact, work really closely with the community council to address real concerns and complaints that were happening relative to two package stores, one that had a lot of kind of deleterious foot traffic. You can imagine what that might look like. And what ended up being the real cause of action was that it was on a pedestrian route to schools. And so if you don't recall, those of you who were in the chamber at the time, kids were walking to school every day while people were falling over themselves drunk outside of one of the properties. And the Brown Jug did, in fact, take that into consideration. And the one thing that I would add different to what Mr. Dunbar said is while the ownership is different and new, the management is still here, who was here then and who was, in fact, staff to the Mountain View store before all of that happened, who knows very well and personally and intimately how those conflicts arise and can be resolved. And so that's Erica Wilburn, who continues now and has risen up, I think, to be the manager of the Brown Jug for the city operation. So I would like folks to recognize that those folks who were in charge of fixing the problem are, in fact, still here. They haven't left.
Thank you, Mr. Constant. Ms. Zalatel?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Dunbar mentioned restrictions, and he cited to Midtown, that we've done some codification or put some provisions on special land use permits that mimic or mirror what our community councils have wanted. So that leads me to the question, what do you believe is the community council's objection to the store? Because I think in order to do that, you have to have a meeting of the minds about what it is, and then is it resolvable? Thanks.
We want to take anyone's concerns extremely seriously. We actually, there were kind of two big highlighted issues after I had presented at the first community council meeting, I think in February of this year. One of them was traffic, and then the other was liquor license congestion. After I was advised by Miss Nancy Joseph from the Old Seward Ocean View Community Council to please review the traffic study that was done by Kinney Engineering, because it showed the impact not just of the proposed liquor store, but also that whole kind of development, and it was like a Starbucks, Sonic, us, and a cannabis as well. So I did review that. We actually paid to have Kinney Engineering relook at that when they had done the 2021 traffic study. Kinney did. Our square footage was greatly overstated by almost over 30%. So a square footage really quite does impact the amount of traffic. So, we asked to take a better look at that again, just with the final footprint, with the architect. So we looked at that and felt like after reviewing that, and even actually before the 2021, we came in second to last out of 8 businesses for traffic generation. So we just felt like our business was not causing undue additions to that. And then similarly to the yellow paper on the table that AMCO put together with regard to saturation of liquor licenses, I can certainly appreciate knowing and living in that area, knowing geographically where others are located. But realistically speaking, there are only 3 package stores in that community council area. And while there are 11 total overall, I really do feel like the minutia of looking at what kind of liquor licenses are operating, because they all interact with the public very differently. So I felt like that was important to look at. So we reviewed all of that as well.
Okay, thank you. May I make just a really quick statement? So for my purposes, traffic and liquor license congestion aren't really things that we could be doing through terms of an MOU or conditions on the license. And that's why I asked the question, and I appreciate the response. And I will have the same question for the community councils when they get the opportunity to speak. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Zalatel. Do members have any other questions for the applicant? Mr. Cross?
Less of a question and a statement. I would just, my only concern regarding any MOU is that we apply the same standard equally amongst the businesses that are in the neighborhood. To put, if it does get approved, I'm a little concerned about extra limitations we put on one business and one 100 yards away, not so much. So that would be my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cross. Okay, I don't see any other members in the queue. Thank you both so much. And if you wouldn't mind sticking around a little bit in case we have an opportunity to discuss more. And now I'll invite the representatives from the two community councils up to the table. Nancy Joseph will be representing.
Carol Fuller will be speaking for Old Stewart Ocean View.
Okay.
And I believe there's a representative from Rabbit Creek Community Council.
Yes, we have Diane Holmes here representing Rabbit Creek Community Council, who also submitted a resolution. Would Old Seward Ocean View like to go first? Ms. Fuller, I believe.
Yes, this is Carol Fuller. I'm Vice President of the Old Seward Ocean View Community Council. I did speak at the July 12th Assembly meeting. I found all the comments in this conversation very interesting. Our big stance was, of course, the concentration of so many liquor opportunities in one small area. They're kind of downplaying, saying that there's really only 3 package stores. They did leave out the fact that the Ravens Ring wine beer house is there also. But within half a mile, there's 3 other opportunities. It's a lot of concentration in one area was our problem. I do appreciate the response about new business. Everyone has the right in this country to try a new business. That's part of our democracy. And I'm interested in this traffic study thing because the Kinney report that we originally got was a 68% increase between the Sonic, the drive-through Starbucks, the new brown jug, and the marijuana retail. Now you're saying that a second study was done, which we were never provided a copy of. And I still, being right so close to this whole thing where I live, which is in the Ocean View area, actually in Colonial Manor, I see this constant traffic, and I just really have to wonder how it's all going to work out. I did have one question that I've not asked before, and that is, how late is this new brown jug location going to be open? Can I ask that?
Sure. The question is, what are the hours?
Correct.
Yes, and we have Ms. Viss coming forward here.
I don't think that we've actually finalized the store hours since this application has been a bit tumultuous and undecided. So typically for some of our smaller convenience stores that are closer to residential areas and less to businesses, I think all of our stores are by midnight. And I think, I want to say Abbott Loop is closed by 10 p.m. So not terribly late.
Thank you for that.
And Mr. McLaughlin would like to add to that as well. Go ahead, Mr.
Yes.
McLaughlin.
From Francis from the Planning Department, unless the Assembly places a limitation, a closing, the Assembly may limit the hours to state that they have to close by a certain time. If the Assembly does not, the way that the alcohol special land use permit is written is that they may follow the hours allowed in the municipality, which is 2:30 a.m. on weekdays and 3 a.m. on weekends. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
McLaughlin.
I would definitely hope that we don't have those late hours in that particular concentrated area. Just speaking for our community council, we did make a resolution that we weren't really thrilled about this, but I have listened to everything here this afternoon, and it has opened up a few things I had not thought about, and I appreciate that. And I want to especially thank Representative Salt for the research he's done for us. I'd like to see if Nancy Joseph would like to, she's the secretary for our Old Seward Ocean View Community Council, if she has anything she'd like to add.
Ms.
I guess
Joseph?
just a request to all of the assembly to please read through all of the packet we have submitted to you a number of times with historical recollections of minutes of our meetings with Brown Jug, Afognak, with perhaps clarifications that needed to be made after the July 12th meeting. And I did hear from the Wine House that, there are over 500 signatures of local patrons opposing this Brown Jug location. We do have, a resolution in place. We have asked many times with the traffic department to get a copy of the updated Kinney report. Did not hear from Brown Jug that they commissioned the report. We haven't heard anything back from Brown Jug as like a handout to say, hey, we're looking at this a little further to the community council and offering information. Hasn't been any communication going that way. I did hear on the very previous workshop that a member of the community spoke about how our community is looking at community areas as more preferable to be non-vehicular, bike, pedestrian friendly, people friendly design spaces. Previous, in the previous decades, we're Project 80s. I've been here a really long time. It was build, build, build. And now in our particular area, you take your life in your hands trying to walk from our community residential areas to any of these industry locations. I would like to say that appreciate this workshop. However, please, everyone, take a look at the historical complaints of the Old Seward with the VFW location with the liquor license. Carol pointed out that the Ravens Ring beer dispensary is not included in any of the conversations you had earlier in this meeting. We haven't been getting any information from the traffic department and have asked 3 times in writing to see the traffic statistical studies. Yes, the Kinney report was cumulative. And when you talk about trying to get crime statistics, the relevant crime statistics would be where there's an alcohol liquor dispensary package store right next to a marijuana retail shop. So don't just maybe think about, isolating a package store and crime and complaints, but when you combine it with a different kind of retail store or marijuana dispensary, the crime statistics could change. But anyway, thank you for letting us speak. And I know that other people around here that need this help.
Thank you, Ms. Joseph. And Ms. Fisk would like to say something. Go ahead.
Only as a point of clarification, I believe a couple of statements were made that we had not provided information for the revised traffic study that we commissioned. Respectfully, that is incorrect. It was sent electronically, and excerpts of it, a lot of it was included in the Old Seward Ocean View Community Council presentation that I did recently. It was sent electronically, and also I went over it during the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't recall seeing that at all, but we'll take a look.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll make sure you get that, Nancy. So now I would invite Ms. Holmes from the Rabbit Creek Community Council. Oh. Mr. Constant may have stepped out for a moment. And if you would go ahead and turn on the microphone there, Ms. Holmes.
Yes, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Diane Holmes, testifying for the Rabbit Creek Council. When I testified before the assembly on this case and offered information on how increased liquor store density equated to more alcohol harms, from incidents requiring medical attention to crime to domestic violence. And as a personal note, when I was on the grand jury, I can tell you that every single domestic violence case that we encountered involved alcohol. And Mr. Schultz asked about the optimal density, what it might be for liquor stores, and he has asked the MOA for data and analysis on this matter. However, I don't know exactly how the request was worded and whether the APT or the GIS people are involved. But I can tell you, Mr. Cross, that the APD map, crime map, does not cut it. After the public hearing, I asked a statistician friend about this issue, and she found any number of studies that show there is no optimal density for liquor stores that don't also raise the normal level of crime. A simple Google search reveals hundreds of articles on alcohol stores and harms. One conclusion from an NIH study concluded that stores with off-site consumption were associated with more violent crime than on-premises outlets. City planners across the US have long recognized the same proven correlation. So my friend wonders why the MOA would waste time doing more analysis. Although if it helps you understand the issue, then we welcome the study. However, I believe it's imperative. Anything you do should have a statistician do it. Southeast Anchorage is not deficient in package stores. The Rabbit Creek Council and Old Seward Councils oppose another store. Obviously, you've heard that. If the MOA wants to cut costs of administration, why not work with the state, Mr. Dunbar, when you are in Juneau, to reduce the number of alcohol permits? And all of you right now could work to limit the number in the city. It may be the right that alcohol can be freely sold, but the state sells the permit, it does not sell the location, and that's why we're here. Now, I have a handout to show you many of the statistics that my friend discovered. And this is for you, Francis. And I'm sure that Mr. Dean would like one. All right, you want to pass this? Yeah, go ahead. And it gives you some statistics and some links on the back as well. So the real issue is here, is this. How much more money do you want to spend administering the harms of alcohol? Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Holmes. Do members have any questions? Ms. Zalatel?
Thank you. As I stated previously, I wanted to ask what are the primary concerns around this permit. And it sounds like it's traffic and its density of alcohol permits and the general harm that alcohol can cause. Is that an accurate summary?
Not from our council. Traffic is not an issue because there would be traffic with any business.
Okay.
But the density and the harms that it's proven.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zalatel. Thank you, Ms. Holmes. And I just want to ask the representatives of Ocean View, Olseward, Ms. Alatel's question as well, that your concerns center around traffic and concentration.
Yes, Madam Chair, this is Carol Fuller again. That is our two concerns. I would like to quickly invite all members of the Assembly, if you have nothing to do this rainy weekend, to drive out here to the Huffman area and visit the concentrated area that we're talking about, as well as the traffic to the Huffman Post Office and all the other small businesses in this area. Just take a look and you can maybe understand what we're concerned about. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Fuller.
And one more comment from Nancy Joseph would be, this would be the third package store in essentially joined parking lot. So 3 package stores would be in one parking lot.
Thank you, Ms. Joseph. Okay, so we are just about out of time. I know we started a few minutes late, but I just want to.
Would I be able to throw in a little bit? This is Mike from Anchorage Wine House.
And what is your last name, Mike?
McVitie, McVittie.
We do have a couple minutes, and while audience participation is not typically part of work sessions, we'll go ahead and hear from a couple members of the public, time permitting. I know members need to leave for another work session. Go ahead.
Okay, so I represent about 600 signatures of people who are in the community and are rather appalled that we're going to have fast food, coffee, cannabis, and alcohol together at the end of the block. There are a number of schools in the area. There's South, Grace, Elizabeth Ann, and Huffman Elementary. All the high schoolers hang out at the Carr's grocery stores for lunch. And if we're going to run these alcohol and marijuana shops until midnight, this is just a bad opportunity for bad decisions. And you know, we're supposed to wait until something bad happens so we can get a crime statistic. I think, you know, having this transient traffic showing up after 10 o'clock is, you know, just going to prove the point. I think we should be preemptive in providing a safe environment for our low density neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other members of the public who want to make a quick comment? And then I'll ask the applicant if they wanted to comment as well. Is there anyone else? If you want to come forward to a microphone, you can have about a minute or so.
I'm not sure if this is on. Okay. The name is Talbot Chang from Anchorage Wine House. And I just wanted to add to the factor that if this does go through, is opening up a new, how should I say, a standard. And I am planning on submitting an application for multiple locations in town. I will acquire the license in one way or another. And at that point, I hope you will be fair and impartial with my application too. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Constant has a question for you, sir.
Talbot.
Go ahead, Mr. Constant.
So thank you, sir. The argument has been made before us that just by the nature of opening a store, major crimes increase. Do you think that's a fair assessment for your business?
Of course.
Yes. You would argue that your business does increase crime?
Are we talking about the Huffman location?
Yeah. I mean, they've just asserted effectively that just allowing a licensee to open a package store creates a 3.9% increase in rapes, robberies, et cetera. I know that's generalized information, but if that's true, is that true also for you?
Well, if if you don't believe that and approve this application, I believe that, this application is on the same factor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Constant. Thank you, sir. And we need to wrap up. We are over time here, but I did want to ask if the applicant had any questions or anything, no final comments. Okay. Thank you. And we've heard from members of the public and community council, and I just want to remind folks that this is item 11C on the agenda for Tuesday, and the public hearing was closed at the July 12 meeting. And I want to thank everyone for being here today and for participating in this conversation. Thank you all. We are adjourned. And there is a 2:30 work session at the PAC scheduled for assembly members.